Okay, we'll resume at 8:45. Okay. Mike Grafe. Name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Your clock is right there if you want to watch it.
I won't do it. Mike Grafe, 1889 Ridgeway, Middleton, Idaho. I feel a little bit overwhelmed. I'm not quite used to this high level of discussions going on. Development agreement, when does that have to be signed? Do they have to have a development agreement when they come to planning and zoning or the city council? Or when does that enter into the scheme of things?
It needs to be signed before annexation. It's good to have it signed before it gets to city council.
Okay, well, there's no development agreement yet. That should, to me, should be a top priority. We can run into some problems if things kind of slide through the cracks and end up progressing farther than they should have without one. I've got a few small things that are probably small potatoes here, but there was something talked about on the Meadow Park roadway where the HOA on the other side of the road owns some type of a 5-foot deal and right away, and that this subdivision would have to get a hold of that HOA and purchase or work some kind of agreement. An agreement that's all fine and dandy, but that should be done pre this stuff happening. The traffic light, I was told 8.5 years ago when I bought into West Highland subdivision that there was a light going up on Cemetery. And that was 8.5 years ago. I don't want to see this one turn into waiting on the next guy or waiting on the next guy. You brought up the point that part of Meadow Park Road was done by a previous developer as a stipulation for them to even develop, and now you don't have to do it. Well, maybe it's your turn in the barrel now where you're gonna have to jump ahead of the game and do the light. There was also something stated on, there's a Black Canyon irrigation company right away that it wasn't clear to me, but I've lived in Idaho over 50 years, and a right-of-way is a right-of-way. And if you think you can do anything on a right-of-way without written deviation or whatever from Black Canyon, irrigation company, you can't do it. You can't build on them. You can't, technically, I don't even know if you can walk on them. School. This comes up every one of our meetings. School, we're 134% that was stated tonight on Middleton Heights. When does the button get pushed where we finally do something about that? Is it 150%, 180%? Anyway, that's just a.
You done?
Well, I want to just finish with, I'm not opposed to the subdivision. It looks like it's going to be a nice subdivision. They said it's minimum lot size at 8,000 square feet. Should be higher, but that's what the code states. But I don't think we're ready with the presentation tonight. They should have had all their ducks in a row. All this stuff should be taken care of before we start going into the annexation process. So if we do that and something does happen where it doesn't happen, then we're going through reversing an annexation process. And I don't want to see that happen, because then that costs me, because I'm a taxpayer, as well as all the rest of you guys.
Thank you, Mike. Sean Claber. Okay. It's too exciting, huh? What's your first name? Delpho. Okay, Delpho Swindlehurst. Okay, so up to the podium, name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes on the clock. It's right there. For you to watch your time.
Delpho Swindlehurst, 2051 White Pine Drive, Middleton, Idaho. After sitting through this process, this isn't the first time I've ever been through this process. We reside just south of that proposed neighborhood, and after listening to all the discussion of the traffic light issue, I got to share with you that anybody that's in that subdivision is not gonna come out and go to Meadow Park and then up through the crossings to go out. They're gonna go Meadow Park to Middleton Road and out. And I just think it's, I don't understand where the burden of this light comes from. I mean, who decides that? That Toll Brothers is assessed with having to pay for a light before they're able to build. Who makes that decision? Where does that come from?
So that's actually staff generated, city internal administration. It could actually, it's sandwiched between Cemetery Road and Middleton Road. The Middleton Road traffic signal light is going to be extremely expensive. And it's not going to be teed up for many years. And there's probably much larger developers that are going to be in line for something like that. So Cemetery Road, it was the next best thing, and that was just a staff.
Can you stop my time, or does that continue? It doesn't, okay.
You're fine, I'm just answering your question.
Thank you. So, all of you guys travel on these roads, I assume, right? And one of the worst intersections is that Middleton Road intersection that we put that janky roundabout in. So, I would just ask that, take into account that all of that traffic from this particular subdivision is gonna go down Middleton Road. And that's the intersection that's gonna be impacted, not this Cemetery Road, in my opinion. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll bring the applicant back up. Who wants to do the rebuttal?
Thank you, Chairman Summers, Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock. Just to run through the questions real quick. On the DA, when signed, I've done a lot of these. It's always been my experience. They're signed after the city council decision. And the reason for that is, as you know, this is just a recommending body. They might feel differently about a condition, and there's no point in signing that DA until the final decision maker's made the decision. On the Meadow Park strips, I think city staff covered that well. Those are private properties owned by a third party that we do not control. So we have agreed to use best efforts to improve those strips and landscape them appropriately, but ultimately we would be trespassing if not given permission, so we will use our best efforts to do that. We have reviewed all of the agency comments, including Black Canyon Irrigation, and all of the conditions and comments from those agencies are acceptable to the applicant. Touching on Mr. Swindlehurst's comments, we tend to agree. Don't need to beat a dead horse, but we, again, don't feel like this project triggers any impact that warrants a condition at State Highway 44 in the cemetery. And I'll stand for any questions if there are any. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, we will close the public hearing, the testimony portion of the hearing, and now it's just to remind the audience, this is just commission discussion, so we don't get any more comments from the audience. And we get no more questions from the commission. So, am I doing it right? Okay.
Yep.
Commission. Comments?
As far as the plan, I like the plan a lot. I mean, it's a great subdivision, like I said, we've all agreed on that. It's a great subdivision. Toll Brothers does a nice product. We're familiar with it. They're big here in the valley and they do great work. As far as continuity, I feel like it's in line. I said, they're providing a lot there. My concern doesn't go back and even not to be, again, like I said, we're talking about being a dead horse. It's not just a specific, it's not just like a specific say, hey, it's this and this. It's like I said, it's the fact is we're at the point of annexation. We do a lot of these meetings where we don't have that ability to say, hey, no, because we are obligated under the law, if they're meeting our conditions, to go with that. This is where we have an option to say, hey, do we wanna cite that? And to go back to some of the public's concerns is, yeah, I mean, it's not, we've got traffic problems, it's not just one specific intersection. But to go back to that, again, it's, you can only do what you can do. You can only do what you can do, and that's that. And my comments going on, we kept going back to the contributions to the Mid-Star I agree, absolutely. They are gonna have to contribute to Mid-Star. An argument that you hear arguments that say, yeah, and I agree with that. And I don't think necessarily should have to come through and go and fund a traffic light. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, I agree to the fact that, you know, if we wanna meet some of these Mid-Star requirements, what's coming up here, odds are with Mid-Star, that's gonna be the next one funded, so it could go through by the state. Well, like I said, it's not, hey, you have to do this, it's, we just can't do it until then. And I think that's what I'm taking away from this, is that's the big thing there. And I know that's potato, whatever you wanna call it, but you know, it's 6 one after the other. As far as the pro rata, I think the city study's up to par on it. I think that's fair. I don't, you know, I mean, the additional fee's great, but if you come back and say, hey, here's what the pro rata is, if you want to be annexed into the city, it's our study. That's just my opinion.
The project itself seems pretty nice, except for one lot, I like it. I don't understand how the irrigation stops at that one lot and why it has to be there. Make it 99 lots or put another lot somewhere else and keep that buffer all the way down there. Valhalla people would love that. They would make so many more friends. Regarding traffic, you know, we need lights, I see that. To make them buy a light is a pretty tough pill to swallow. I would rather see somehow Meadow Park go all the way through the cemetery. And their project, I can see half of these residents going out the crossings, either north or south to Meadow Park, and not even using their roads with the bump stops in them. I mean, the bump stops or bumpers or whatever you call them, sounds like they're gonna be a lot more money for traffic control. I mean, I personally hate them, but if there's some safety reason for doing them, great, but, I mean, that's another, I don't care either way on that, but I think they get a lot more mileage with that one lot being gone. And another way out of Meadow Park. They'll take their money,
Okay,
they're
so,
$150,000 plus.
So so you don't like the bump curbs?
Personally, I don't like it, but whether it's a go, no-go,
Okay,
it's not that big a deal to me.
because we have multiple things that we have to
Right.
make motions on, right?
Yeah.
And you said we should separate them
Yeah,
all,
those
separate motions.
waiver requests specifically, I would do a separate motion on.
What are your thoughts on this?
So, not opposed to either waiver. They've indicated that they are willing to work with the city on the bump outs. I like the idea of the bump outs personally. Safety is a big concern. If they can mitigate the concerns of the staff and how they design it or how they take care of it, I think that's, I'm not opposed to alternate ways of accomplishing that. The other waiver about the sidewalks, I'm not agree with that. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
The crossings already has that, so.
I think it's more safe for kids, like in my neighborhood, I worry about,
Car jumping the curb.
or just, you know, like kids getting run over. I the sidewalks.
They
Yeah,
don't know this now.
it's like I said, I think I've seen it in other communities, and I think that it's not a bad idea. I think maybe time that we take a look at the plans, if such a willing to do that. I would put forth a recommendation that we approve it based on mitigation for, I don't know if we can do it in that way. As far as the annexation, I think that we've got all the criteria met for annexation. At the end of the day, there's still a gap in proportionate share and who should do what. I think the biggest thing is the timing. And we're no closer now than we were when we walked in the room. And I don't know, I see, what the applicant has proposed and what their feelings are. And I also see what the city's position is. But we're not together, and I don't know how we're gonna solve that tonight. I hear what you have to say, Doug, but it's not a requirement, yet it's something that somebody's gonna have to budge. Or we can just put it forth as what has been written by the city, for recommendation by city council, but that's putting them in the same debate scenario that we've been in tonight. So in other words, I'm on the fence at how to go forward with it because valid points both sides. And like I said, any other negotiation, we have to get together and work out a solution that's amenable to everybody. And we're not going to do that tonight. So how to put it forward, I'm not sure. That's a tough one. I do like the idea of taking the money, that they've offered. But that puts the gamble of timing on the city as compared to what we've proposed, which puts the gamble of time on the developer. And if there's some way to mitigate that, that might be a solution we can look for. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense?
Yeah.
So it boils down to timing when the light is or is not gonna go in on cemetery, and if that's a hard line position the city is taking, city's evaluation of it, then that's something that we have to work out. So in other words, I'm no farther along than I was when I walked in. I'm not sure what to recommend. I don't want to put it back, because that wouldn't be fair to anybody. But putting it forward the way it is, kind of throws it on city council. So I'm looking for ideas, Douglas.
So let me tell you where I stand on all of this,
Okay.
is that the bump outs are fine. Like, I like the thought of it being safer for kids on bikes and scooters, and we know that Middleton City residents have 12 cars that they park in front of their house and trailers galore, and that's just, so we can expect that in this subdivision as well, that we need something to make safer roads for kids. So I like that. I do like the sidewalk issue. I think that's a nice, classy addition to a subdivision that we don't see here in Middleton very often, so I do like that. This is tricky because most of the time when stuff comes to us, we don't really have a choice, right? Because it's usually within code. It's either, meets code or doesn't, right? And if it meets code, you don't have a lot of options. So it is tricky that we have to make actual decisions here. It feels like, we have to actually weigh things and make decisions. The thing that I'm really struggling with is obviously the light requirement. The timeline, to me, doesn't support a requirement to build a light, because we already think that that's gonna be built there, right? Within that timeline. The fact that the city requested a grant to build the light kind of is a sticky point for me too. The fact that the Midstar fees also are to build the light, it feels like double dipping, triple dipping in all of these things. You know, the city's already requested it, we're already paying it here, so I'm kind of leaning towards that being an unfair requirement. As much as I want the light, because that's the street I use. Thankfully Jack in the Box is there now for me to go through. I take a right, and I go through the Jack
Oh,
in the
you're one of
Box
those.
parking lot. I know, I don't tell anybody, but I do frequent Jack in the Box enough to justify the couple of times I use their parking lot.
You buying that own style?
Nah, I really don't go to Jack in the Box, but occasionally for my daughter. So I'm kind of the, I think that's maybe not a fair condition.
I agree with the condition of, like I said, requirement, but like I said, it's not, it's that, but so, we did put in, Middleton, the city of Middleton did put in a grant. Midstar does have the funding there. And I think that will come through, and I hope that does come through, because I don't want to see a developer have to pay that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, are we ready for development to add the stress on the city and on the traffic now that come through? Is it worth waiting?
Well, that's where we have to say
Yeah.
we deny annexation,
Yeah. I mean,
not we deny development.
and that's again, because I understand where they're coming from too, and I agree, it's the, you know, it should be that, but my faith in ITD and the Midstar plan has faltered greatly. So that's the, you know, are the funds going there? Yes, they are, but I mean, it is the game of hurry up and wait. And that's to the point where we as a city have to start looking out for our best interest too. We can keep adding stress to it and just, it's tacking on.
What is a fair appropriate or proportionate share? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's the thing, is proportionate share. Is I don't think it should have to relay on to one developer. I'm not, the wording that's coming out, and I understand it's been coming out, and I see the point of it. Do I think this developer should have to build the light? No, I do not. Absolutely no, I do not. Solely. Do I think that the idea of having traffic mitigation is important before we go forward with something? Yes, I do, very much so. And again, it's you take it where you can get it, you know, and it's a tough one. It's a chicken egg thing, whatever you want to call it. It's sad. Like I said, I love the subdivision. I know the builder. I know they build a good product, and I see their point. I do see their point, and I agree with that point. But at the same time, you know, it's very rarely do you have the opportunity to say, hey, and again, it's not saying, hey, and again, I see the legal side of both sides. I'm doing the
I
but
think we're all conflicted.
yeah, it's that nobody's saying they have to build it. They're just saying you can't build until it's there. And I know that seems like, hey, we have to build it. And I know that comes, but that's not what it's saying. It's,
So council, do you have any recommendations on how we can get off this stalemate?
So, no, not particularly. A developer's not obliged to take staff's recommendations about an application. So, Toll Brothers could have come in and said, we don't want any DA, and we want this all to be, all the houses to be like color like barber poles. They could take that all the way through to city council. There's no amount of staff objection that could keep them from taking the application through. And so, as a general rule, I think it's good for planning and zoning commissions, design review committees, arts and historic preservation commissions to take up the applicant in front of them and render a decision on their recommendation, yay or nay. The alternative is to delay and then have staff continue to talk to the applicant, but that has no certainty of being fruitful. And the applicant is not under any obligation to negotiate that further. So my advice for how to get through tonight is that at this point the commission has a robust record, I think, and has the information that's available to it. And there's always information at the fringes that might be nice to have, or additional conversations that could be had. But I think that the commission is maybe not obliged in a legal sense that you can't continue this, but is obliged in sort of a procedural sense and in terms of the charge from the city to say, okay, here are the facts we have. We don't know what we don't know. We're gonna make a recommendation, and inevitably, there might be a way to choke down the number of issues that are presented to council, but that's always the case, and so anyway, my recommendation for tonight is for good or ill, that you take the information you have and you make your recommendation based on that, and if the applicant has carried their argument, then that's what you should do, and if the applicant has not, then you should do the opposite, and the chips will just have to sort of fall where they may, and council will take it up with your recommendation in mind. So I know it's probably not exactly what you wanted to hear, but
No, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say.
yeah.
Impasse or impasse.
Yeah.
We have to go forward, right?
So
So,
ultimately, the decision lies with city council,
yes,
right?
I think that's.
So we're just giving them a recommendation based upon what we've heard tonight, and there may be something fruitful out of our discussion tonight that the applicant then takes to city council and gets, everybody gets what they want out of this, so. But do we feel like we're ready to make a motion? Somebody,
If I'm hearing what Doug is saying, that we make a motion to pass the project as it has been proposed by staff.
so
So,
recommended.
let me clarify. That's not what I said.
Yeah, okay.
Then we have to make a decision,
It is-
and so,
Yeah, it's not my legal opinion that you are obliged to go with staff's recommendation. I'm saying that you should take the information you have here and your deliberation, and you should approve, you can, all the way from approve any version that's been articulated to denying any version that's been articulated. You will have to synthesize the information that's presented and come up with something that you can either recommend the council approve this with conditions X, Y, and Z, or without conditions X, Y, or Z, or recommend the council deny it. I guess that wouldn't be conditioned. So anyway, but I'm not saying that you are legally obliged to follow staff's recommendation. That's definitely not the
Yeah,
case.
I'm sorry, I worded that improperly,
Okay.
but
And Chairwoman Summers, if I may, it actually just comes down to just the two main points of a contention. Otherwise, we're on board, and it is, are you going to require the cemetery light? And number two, how much for the pro rata fee, the $109,000 or the $46,000, plus maybe an additional $112,000 voluntary payment of some sort. If you like what they proposed and that makes more sense, it's more fair to you, then that's what you should recommend.
so
and
it's
the
100.
proposal was, that would go in the development agreement, they would be held to that. Right?
That's what they would, if you like their proposal, we would memorialize it into the
Okay.
DA, ultimately at the
So
end,
they would be
anyway.
held to that,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And it actually ends up being more in the end.
Well, it doesn't end up more, but it is a sure payment, because even if somebody else builds the light, at least the city got what would be a total of almost $155,000 of a voluntary payment. So that's the one benefit to what they're saying. And if that is amenable to you, then, and they made their case, then that would be your recommendation. But if you also realize that Cemetery Road is a problem, it's a LOSF, I don't want to rehash it, then city staff has put forward what you should, it's in the conditions of approval on all of these areas of dispute. You would just approve with conditions of approval, or don't approve.
So on the 112,000, was that part of I don't remember, it could be in there and I missed it. What was that 112,000 previously offered before?
It's
tonight?
somewhat new. It was offered in a different way, about $155,000. So city staff was aware of something to that degree.
But it wasn't in the staff report, right? That
It was
what-
not
what
staff
came up
report.
with
I
that.
didn't know at the time the staff report was written that was just a really firm offer.
Okay, so, as far as creating our motions, can we do, we'll basically have 4 different motions, right? Annexation, the, 2 waivers.
Well, you would do one for annexation rezone. You would do a separate motion for preliminary plat. You do a motion for the development agreement. But there should also be a motion for the waivers. And what do you think, Doug?
So I think it's fine to accomplish them all by one motion. The benefit of separating out the waivers is in the event that the commission wanted to do something different with them.
Okay.
So that might be a reason why someone would start with a motion on one of the waivers. Someone would also be permitted to simply approve the applications and waivers with conditions X, Y, and Z, or modifications X, Y, and Z. So, but what's important is that the record reflects clearly what it was that you were moving to do, and whether that motion was supported by a majority of the commissioners. So.
Did you say that they could put the DA and the pre-plat and the annexation into one motion?
Mhm.
Okay.
But we don't have a development agreement that we are approving, or we're recommending for approval, but we're just recommending the development agreement be approved by city council with the conditions of approval?
So if you like city staff's proposal, then you would just ask that the development agreement be approved. But if you like their proposal, then you would approve it, but with the changes that it would be a pro rata and a contribution of approximately $155,000 and no cemetery requirement.
Okay.
So how would we put a number on the pro rata?
We would just say with the applicant's modification for,
Pro rata
Pro rata.
modification, that don't we need to give a number? So in other words, what is the exact number that you proposed?
It's on the slide if you want to go.
Let me see here. I'm gonna go right to the beginning and just tell me.
This is the second to last
Oops.
one. 19.
Slide 19,
Yes.
2019, there we go. So,
40,000,
So, yeah, we-
112,000.
was that 157 total about?
Yes.
Correct.
155,
155.
yeah.
Oh,
43 plus 112.
oh gosh, yeah, it's late. I don't do math.
Okay, anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I better not.
We got a whiteboard to jot down some notes.
So we need to make a motion to.
Can we make a
to
motion to
recommend-
consider the transportation contribution of 125 or 150?
Well, that would be, we would make a motion to accept the development agreement
As stated,
as
with
stated
the
with the staff, with
recommendation
the
from us
modification.
to consider the,
Yeah, with the modification of the applicant's transportation contributions,
correct, something to that effect.
yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing, if I can try to articulate it, is that the motion you're trying to make is that you move that the commission recommend approval of the application and all its component parts of the application and the waivers with all conditions as set forth in the staff report, except that the condition about the Hartley Lane intersection would be removed, and that the condition about pro rata fees would be modified to match what was presented by the applicant during their presentation.
Okay.
And as long as the mic is picking up, I think it's appropriate if you want to just say so moved.
Okay, so was that what we want, or is that what somebody wants for a motion? Because you can
Will
just
somebody
say-
put it out there?
I think
and
that
vote?
I think that it gives council two ways to go. And is the benefit of our conversation to weigh it as well.
So we're moving to recommend the approval of the applicant as set forth with all conditions of approval except the modification of the transportation contributions presented by the applicant.
Yeah, with the removal of the condition about the intersection at Hartley Lane and the modification of the,
Cemetery.
It's
Sorry.
cemetery road, yeah.
That's where I got confused.
sorry,
Okay, okay,
the state highway intersection. I know that road for
okay.
sure. And the condition concerning the pro rata fees be modified to align with what was presented by the applicant.
Okay, so is that, okay,
The only question.
so I guess
that
we have to, somebody has to make a motion, and then we get to
You're gonna
vote,
make a motion?
second it and stuff.
Can I go back to the waivers real quick? I like what it is that you
Okay.
proposed there. As far as the waiver on the corner, the bulb outs, when we make the motion to approve that, shouldn't we say, based on there being modification or some kind of a negotiation that allows for the city people to do their position? Can we say something to that effect, or do we just say approve both, or the one about the sidewalks is a
We can do
go?
we can do the waivers completely separate.
That-
Yeah,
we're
just
gonna
do those
the
after.
city on the
So,
design.
Yeah.
but we can,
If you're willing to bring the project in, then the waivers are gonna become an issue. So
Okay.
start with the first
Okay.
horse and then finish with the cart.
Okay.
okay.
All right, so, does anybody want to make a motion that, to recommend approval of the application as stated in the
I'll make
staff
a-
report?
I'll make a motion to approve as Doug stated.
Recommend approval,
Recommend approval.
okay.
As has
And,
been stated, I don't.
and we're recommending approval as the staff report suggested with the removal of the requirement of the cemetery light and the modification of the increased transportation contributions as stated by the applicant.
And
That's
you're,
the
and you're
motion.
saying
Along
along with the conditions of
with the
approval in the staff
conditions.
report, except for the
Except
ones
for
that
those two
pertain to
things.
those two items?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I
this
think you have
whole
it.
list of 14 conditions of approval
Yes,
minus the condition for the requirement for the light
mhm.
and modification on the transportation contributions as stated by the applicant during the presentation.
Should we put a number in there?
No, it's
Because
fine.
it's right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's part of the public record.
sounds
So-
good, sounds,
So you made that motion?
I did.
Anybody second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Chris Jansen and a second by Trumbull, and all those in favor?
Okay,
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 3 in favor, 1 who is not in favor. Now we need motions for the
waivers.
waivers.
I would do each one separately.
Okay. So I'll do a motion to approve the waiver for the sidewalk modification.
Second.
Okay. So a motion by Summers, second by Watkins. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, so the motion to recommend approval for the waiver on the sidewalks passes with unanimous. And then we need a waiver, a recommendation on the waiver for the bulb outs. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
So
the
do we
only
make
other
a
thing?
motion to approve based on, or contingent to, or do we just say approve the waiver with accommodation, what's the right word?
The city can't accommodate it, their equipment currently, they'd have to have it.
They said that they would modify so that it could work. So
Yeah, the applicant said they
based
could
on
modify the
working
design.
together with the developer to make accommodations to the design. so
That would fit
that would fit
city's
the
equipment.
And still give them.
You have to have a special rear steering equipment, according to our fellas.
So why don't you recommend approving the waiver, but have it be conditional that your recommendation of approval, it only stands so long as by the time that this application is in front of city council, that city staff have made a certification of some sort that their equipment can handle those blowouts. And again, I think you can just say so moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so, motion by Watkins, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And second by Chris Jansen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, so. We done with that one?
And close the public hearing, yeah.
Closing the public hearing, 9:26 PM.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You betcha.
Thanks,
Good luck.
guys.
Mhm.
See ya.
Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Nobody wants to stick around.
I'm a hard ass tonight.
Are we still on the record? Are we still on the record? Oh,
That's a tough
yeah,
night.
we're still recording.
I don't think it's fair they have to cover it,
I'm working on it.
and I'm with that, but I just can't take a hard line on this.
Yeah.
Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
We will open up the public comments section.
You wanna get rid of mine?
9:27.
Have a good night, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike's leaving?
What? I guess it's over.
He said he's passing.
Okay, so we do have, our commission discussion. Anybody have any?
Are we still
Can't be
on?
anything to do with.
Are we still on the mic?
applications.
Yeah. mhm. I don't have any.
Is everybody going, is anybody, I should say, is anybody coming to the meet and greet tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes, and it was posted publicly, so it's all right.
It was posted publicly,
Yeah.
yes, that there might be a quorum, but not a quorum, yeah,
Yeah.
so, okay,
So I
good.
might have to recuse myself and not come if you guys are coming.
No,
Well,
everybody's.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so they
We're
posted
good.
public-
It's
public
public,
notice
there's
that
public
there
notice made, so
might
everybody
be-
can go.
Okay,
Hey,
Jenica was on that.
do we should start taking a motion to adjourn, right? I've seen
Oh,
that
I
done in a
don't know,
couple
do you?
of meetings.
You certainly can. It's always fun. It's a fun motion to make and a fun motion to second, so why not?
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
Motion by Chris Jansen, second by Watkins, we
We are
are
done.
done.
9:48?
Thank you,
Nine twenty-eight PM, meeting